This video is to show how to easily make the wax shotgun slugs. I found the most difficult part of making the shotgun slugs was getting the crimp out of the case. What I eventually did is I took a knife and just sliced off the top end of the hull, which cut off the folded lip and the crimp itself. The problem with that was it meant that the wad was no longer being compressed into the case, which means that the ignition and velocity was probably a bit erratic compared to cutting down and cutting out the crimp, leaving the folded over part to keep the wad compressed. I hit upon something that was cheap, fast, and makes for a very nice, easy cut down to remove the crimp. It leaves the mouth of the case nice and round, so it'll cycle easily through semi-automatic and pump shotguns. The solution was a hole cutter. It's a 16mm ceramic tile hole cutter. I bought it on eBay for about $4. I bought two of them, not because I was concerned about how quickly it would wear out. I've made a couple hundred cases so far, no sign of wear, so it was a good $4 investment. The cutter has a slot in it. When you cut through the crimp section winds up inside the cutter. So what I do is I lay out 3 at a time. I cut 3 crimps. The 3 crimps are then inside there. Then I take my little screwdriver, and using the slot, I pop the crimps out. I lay out 3 more cases, then I remove the crimps. I'll show you how it's done. The other tool you need is something to hold the case. I use a vice grip, and it's adjusted so it just barely bites the case. I pushed a little bit hard anyway. It's cut the crimp right out. Dump the shot. Drop the case in the pail beside me. Do another one. Dump the shot. Drop the case. Bite another one. That was better. And if you can see that, that's perfectly drilled out. The mouth of the case is nice and round. When I pour the hot wax in there, I'll have or the mixture of wax and pellets, I'll have a nice perfect slug inside the wad column. When you are making wax slugs, you're probably making them for competitions like 3-gun, where you require a slug. Slugs are expensive to buy. They're about $1 each. I buy the cheapest possible target loads. I make slugs out of them that cost me about 25 cents each. I've shot them at 50 yards off a bench, and they grew up under 2 inches, which is probably good enough for my purposes. When you buy the target loads or your shotgun ammunition, you should be aware of something written on a case called the dram equivalent. This particular box says 3 drams equivalent. Dram is a measure of black powder in the old days. It's used today to give you an idea of the power of the ammunition. This ammunition, which is mild target ammunition, is 2 3/4 dram. That's the mildest ammunition available. 3 is common. 3 1/4 is common for field loads. and it might say dram equivalent max. So when you're going to make up your slug ammunition, decide ahead of time whether you need really powerful slugs or just slugs that'll shoot easily and accurately and cheaply and punch holes in paper. If you don't want a lot of recoil, and for target shooting, 3-gun, what have you, recoil is not your friend, you're better off with 2 3/4 dram equivalent. That's the mildest ammunition you can make. When I make the wax slugs, what I do is I melt the wax in a little pie plate I bought at the dollar store. These, I guess, are for meat pies. And what I did is I melted the wax in a pair of these, just in case the aluminum got punctured or leaked or melted. It would make a terrible mess if all this wax and shot went into the stove, so I doubled it up. And I've used this 3 or 4 times, never a problem. For wax, excuse me, for wax, I use paraffin wax. I bought it at the hardware store. This wax is used for sealing mason jars. It comes in blocks like that. It's very hard. It makes for excellent slugs. The wax is clear, and when you're working with it, it's a little bit hard to see the wax, so I put in a blue wax crayon, and that gave my wax a color. And this is it's hard now, but that's full of shot and wax. I melt the paraffin, the wax and the shot on high heat on my electric stove until it's all melted, and I stir it around to make sure that the shot is hot. Then I set it to medium heat. That seems to be about right. If the wax starts to smoke, it's too hot. And what I do is I use a teaspoon that I've crimped with a bit with a vice grip, so it's a little more trough oriented. And then I pour a full scoop of this into the shot shell. That fills it about 3/4 of the way. Then I take a couple small scoops and make the shot up to the level of the bottom of the roll crimp. And then I take just a little bit of the melted wax, put it on top, so there's maybe a 1/10 of an inch of pure wax sitting on top of the shot. Then I tap it a few times, and as I tap it, I see a few bubbles come out. That means I have pure wax around my shot all the way down to the bottom, and I put it aside to cool. It takes me about an hour to decrimp 75 cases, and it probably takes me a half hour to load them with the shot. Then I put them outside to cool, or in the refrigerator to make them cold, because what happens is there's wax dribbling down the side. When it's nice and cold, I can take a knife and I scrape it, and the wax pops right off, and I make sure there's no wax around the outside of the case. The slugs hit hard. I've shot them through a choke, a full choke, modified choke, an improved cylinder. Frankly, I don't see much difference in the results. I've tried them with a rifled choke. That didn't seem to make much difference either. I have not tried them in a full rifled barrel. I don't have one. Probably the practical application is an improved cylinder or cylinder bore with no choke at all. They shoot quite accurately to 25 yards. They leave a nice round hole, which tells me they're not tumbling. At 50 yards, they're reasonably accurate, but they appear to be tumbling, and I wouldn't trust them. They hit with a lot of authority. They blow holes through wooden planks and pieces of firewood quite nicely. I wouldn't be inclined to use it for hunting, although I have no doubt that it would be effective. What I have done is taken a 44 or 45 caliber lead round ball from my muzzle loading revolver and dropped that into the top of the shot column of the wax, so that it sits on top of the shot, and that lead ball is coming out at 1,300 feet a second, which means it's approaching 357 Magnum velocity and power. I don't doubt that when that hits, say, a deer, the round ball would give it extra lethality through penetration.